Hey guys, Bearded here, bringing you part 1 of a multi-part Embark tutorial series. I am going to be covering the first year of gameplay in its entirety and exactly how you will be able to survive doing that. I will be covering all of the mechanics in the game, all of the panels and how they interact with each other, all of the unknown features or features that are hard to understand or not easily available to figure out. This first video today is basically just going to cover the starting screen as well as custom team creation. I don't want to get too in-depth in it, but enough to give you guys a good idea of how to utilize it to the best of your ability. We're going to get started here, and the first thing we're going to talk about is the world. There are multiple biomes in this world, which you can see indicated by the color code on the map. There is a jungle, grasslands, a forest, desert, mountains, and a tundra. Each of these areas has different temperatures, geography, animals, plants, and factors that you'll have to deal with. If you're a new player, I suggest sticking to either the jungle or the grasslands or the forest. Those are the easiest to learn the game. What you can do is click on a biome and it will provide you the information about that biome. The two important factors here are the temperature and the precipitation. A lot of players have problems managing water, and we'll get to how to do that effectively in a later video. But if you have anything over 5,000 for precipitation, then you should be able to effectively never run out of water, and we'll explain that later on. And temperature is also very important because it's going to influence how hot or cold your colonists are, how well they work, and how happy they are. In addition to this information here, this preview area will show you the elevation that you'll be dealing with, how flat or mountainous the terrain is, how much foliage or vegetation is in your area, and any craters or lulls in elevation that you might be able to experience. This map does not currently show freshwater locations, but it is planned to show that in the future. This is going to be the meat and potatoes of the tutorial. What we're going to focus on is how to effectively utilize this panel to get the most out of it and have the strongest party to start with, if that's your goal. So the first thing that I do when I get here is I delete all of this stuff and then I make my team. For the sake of the tutorial, I've already gone ahead and made my team. Things you need to pay attention to. Right here is the maximum amount of points you can utilize. Each colonist is worth a certain number of points. These points are determined by how strong they are, their traits, and their skills. We can go to the custom panel here to see how these points tally up. Here you have their traits, here are their skills, and here is their body. This body number is random when the colonist is generated. You can change this body number by hitting refresh and opening the panel again. This number I've seen as low as 50 and as high as 400. Bear in mind that if you hit this refresh button, it completely changes all the settings for the character. So find a good body number that you want to use before you set up your characters. Additionally, this customization cost applies to every single character that you customize. So it costs you 100 points no matter what you do. If you change something in the custom panel for a character, it will charge you 100 points. So let's go over some of these traits and why I picked them, kind of how they work. Each colonist gets 3 traits that they can utilize. There are both helpful and hurtful traits. The maximum number of points a trait can cost is indicated by the number next to the trait itself. If it's a negative number, then that means that is a negative trait, and it actually gives you extra points to spend. If you're highlighting over a trait, you can see any tan text will be perks that it gives you. Any light blue text will be debuffs. Purple indicates the personality traits that they like, and green indicates the personality traits they do not like. So, one thing that I always do is I always prefer all of my workers or colonists to have the industrious trait. This is my favorite trait in the whole game. It gives them the perk of fast worker and the perk of fast learner. Fast worker modifies how fast they work when they are working on any workbench. So as long as they're performing a task that is on a workbench, they will perform that work faster, which makes them more productive. Fast learner provides a bonus % of experience added on to their actions for everything that they do. One thing to note about these traits is because there are different levels of the traits, even though that this says Industrious 100, if they are only barely industrious, the cost is actually only 25, and the cost goes up with each level of the trait. In addition to the cost being modified by the level, all of the attributes of the trait are also modified. For example, at Extremely Industrious, Fast Learner gives a 10% buff, but at Barely Industrious, it gives, I think, around a 2.5% buff to experience. That's the same thing for Fast Worker. It makes them faster or slower depending on how high the level of the trait is. I think it also influences how much they like or dislike other character traits. So that's why I pick Industrious. And then after I give them all Industrious, I decide, I want everybody to focus on 1 or 2 jobs. And then I give them traits that correspond to those jobs. And those traits, most of the time, should make sense when they work together, or sometimes directly influence each other. So for her, I gave her Resourceful. It makes her enjoy farming. And then I gave her Greedy. She eats and drinks more, and she enjoys cooking. I feel like farming and cooking go well together, so I gave her both of those skills. That's basically all you need to do to set up your characters. Now, I do also make all of my characters age 18 because they do age rather quickly while you're playing, and they will eventually die from old age, so I try to set them all up to be as young as possible. Another thing that you can do is you can add a child here, and then you can customize the child, and if you make the child younger, say 1 year old, he is 279 points cheaper to customize. So if you have extra points and you want to modify some people, or add in another child in there, you can totally set up a child to go in there. I'll show you guys how I would set up a child inside this scenario. I have some extra points left over, and because they're children, they don't cost as many points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give him the last 2 skills that I know that I need for my group. My group needs weapon making and armor making because I have not given anybody that's currently in my group those skills. So we can give him aggressive, I think, is weapon making. Nope, wrong about that. Let's see here. I'll find it here really quick. Psychopathic is weapon making, and armor smithing is pessimistic, I believe. Yep. So psychopathic and pessimistic are the 2 traits that I don't currently have in my colony. But I need them. And I had the points left over, so I might as well give them to a child if I want another person in my colony. So I would set that up, I would give those traits to him, And I would also give him industrious, because I give all my people industrious. Moving on, I will just go through all my guys really quick and kind of discuss why I picked the traits I picked. Custom. So for Tonya's husband, I always give him obviously industrious. I gave him simple and methodical. This is a great example of how some traits can work together. So simple makes him enjoy mining, and methodical gives him a high prospecting chance. So while he's mining, he has a high chance to prospect ore around his location. That will allow the user or the player to find ore more quickly and navigate to it to hopefully increase your output and your efficiency with mining. Callie. I gave her woodcutting, calm, and fertile. But I set this up wrong because this is actually supposed to be industrious. And unimaginative. So I want her to focus on woodcutting and masonry. The reason I'm going to have her focus solely on woodcutting is because it's very beneficial to have one woodcutter so they can get legendary woodcutting, so you can get higher quality logs from that, because everything else in your base that comes from wood is all dependent on the log. So if you get higher quality logs and you have higher quality weapons and things that use wood, and or higher quality furniture and beds and all of that stuff. So I'll give her woodcutting, I'll have her focus on that, and when she's not focusing on that, she'll focus on building. Now generally, building is not too much of a big deal. Everybody in your whole colony can build without too much of an impact, unless you're doing things like making blocks or you're actually making statues in your game. So I want her primarily to focus on woodcutting, but she'll also really enjoy masonry if she has no wood to cut at the time. Will, I gave him industrious, scholarly, and imaginative. Another good example of traits working together. So industrious gives you the fast worker perk like we've learned. Scholarly gives him the fast researcher perk, so he researches very quickly. And imaginative also gives the fast researcher perk, with the benefit of also getting crafting out of it. So this guy will do all of my researching. So not only will he get the fast researcher out of this, but I'm pretty sure that because the research bench is a bench, while he's working on it, it's also benefited from the fast worker perk here. So he will do it extremely quickly, and so it'll speed up the process a lot for you. And outside of researching, when you're not researching anything, he can do crafting. Irving, I gave him industrious, kind, and convincing. I needed to fill up carpentry and bowing. I feel like they went well together, and I give him industrious on top of that. So that should work out quite well. For Susana, I gave her industrious, dependable, and content. That gives her the perks from industrious, gives her smelting, as well as weaving. I needed both of those skills in the party so somebody could focus on them. Smelting is also tied directly to the salt works, which is used to produce fresh water as well as salt for preserving food. So after you team set up, you will probably have points left over. The way I distribute points at the end is I like to give everybody 4 or 5 clicks in the dodging skill. I like to do this because I feel like, personally, it helps them survive the early game better. If they all have a passable rating for dodging, they are more likely to survive an early fight. Another thing that's really important is paying attention to their body number down here. I would prefer anything over 300. If you can get 400, that'd be amazing. But I would stay away from anything below 125, because then you're going to have issues where they get hit once or twice and, you know, they get schwacked, and you won't be very happy about that, especially if it's like one of your prime guys. So body is super important, and I think that dodging is super important. What I will also like to do is I like to go through and add the remaining points to everyone's primary skill. So for Tonya, it's cooking and farming. I'll give her points in cooking. Eddie, dodging and jewelry making, because jewelry making is more frustrating than mining is to deal with. Masonry, woodcutting, and dodging. Woodcutting you can put extra points into if you have somebody that is doing it, because it is really frustratingly slow to level up, but it's really, really important of a skill. Anyways, I think you guys get the idea. That's all I have for now. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, you can leave them down below. You can reach me in Discord or on Twitter. I'll put those links down below as well. Thank you so much, and I'll see you for episode 2.